NFL news this week, the Stefon Diggs trade. He has been sent to the big future now looking forward in Houston. According to Shefty, part of the blockbuster trade to acquire him from Buffalo, the Texans wiped out the final 3 years of his contract, giving him the ability to become a free agent after this season. He also got a raise for next year. He'll earn $22.5 million in guaranteed money. So where does that leave the Bills receiving core? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here it is. They've added Curtis Samuel and Mac Hollins this offseason. They, along with Khalil Shakir, are the only ones that caught a pass last year in the NFL. So while this looks like an uncertain group, Kimberly Martin was here yesterday saying the standard remains the standard.
The expectation is winning a Super Bowl. Just because Josh Allen is Josh Allen and he's in Buffalo, I'm sorry, the rules don't change. So I get it that you and Dan think that we're being unfair. It's not about fairness. It's if you are eating up most of the pie, most of the responsibility now falls on you. Is that fair? No, but life is not fair, baby. That is reality.
So she said it as only she can, but the question is she right? Graziano is here, Mike T is here, and Domonique Foxworth. It's been too long. I'll start with you. Neek, is she right? Does the standard remain the standard in Buffalo? Is it a disappointment if this isn't a Super Bowl team?
I mean, I think she's partially right. I think the standard does not change. As long as you have a top-of-the-league MVP caliber quarterback, the expectation is that you will have a shot at the Super Bowl. But where I disagree with her is where we start talking about how much of this responsibility falls on Josh Allen just because he's getting paid a lot of money, which is what he deserves. I think the responsibility falls on Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, which they showed us that they're capable of last year. I thought Sean McDermott and that coaching staff did a great job compensating for injuries and changing the whole offense midway through the season. So I do think that they need to draft well in order to continue to have success, and they need to coach up the players that they have. The guys that are on that team are talented enough to find out what's best for them. And the last thing is we don't have to look much further than the Chiefs for the example of this. If you look at those rosters, while we want to give all the credit to Patrick Mahomes, and he deserves a lot of credit, we have to appreciate how often they hit in the draft, especially on defense, from Snead to McDuffie to Karlaftis to Bolton and Creed Humphreys on the offensive side of the ball. These are players that were early in their contract that were outplaying the money that they were getting paid. So the GM and the coach need to continue to do that to help Josh Allen and help this team compete.
Is he right?
Oh, he's absolutely right. There's no question about it. And if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you're encouraged by the fact that your general manager and your head coach have shown the ability to be problem solvers, to handle the difficulties that come up in an offseason, during a season, fix things on the fly. But I do think there's some level of responsibility that Josh Allen can assume here if he wants. Like we talk about the Chiefs example. At the offseason after they traded away Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes made a point of, like, I have to play differently. I have to elevate my game in ways that maybe I didn't realize. I have to make sure and bring these new receivers along. So you can do that. You can go the Mahomes route, or you can go, like the Aaron Rodgers route, right? Where they trade Devontae Adams and he kind of mopes through a whole season and then gets traded away the next offseason. So we've seen examples all across the spectrum of how the quarterback handles this inevitability, this okay, now that you're getting paid this money, other aspects of the roster, we have to go cheaper. So I think we'll see what Josh Allen has. It can be up to him. It doesn't have to be, but he can be a contributor to this, to making this a successful transition.
Well, and actually, Mike T, you made a fascinating point in our call this morning in which you said something I don't think anyone else has said, which is there's a world in which this Bills receiver room winds up being in a better place. Take me through that.
Yeah, Greeny, I think it's very plausible. At 28, as you know, Greeny, there's going to be a really good receiver there. Let's call it Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. Maybe you go up a couple of spots to get him to make sure nobody else does. And then after June 1st, Greeny, go get Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. You're going to get big cap relief from Tre'Davious White's money coming off the cap. Sign him to a big extension. Now, all of a sudden, this is a much more diverse passing offense led by Dalton Kincaid, who had 66 less targets last year than Stefon Diggs. Now, all of a sudden, you just don't double Stefon Diggs. And if you come out of this with Brandon Ayuk and Brian Thomas Jr., you're better. And by the way, there's other players like a Michael Thomas is out there, Odell Beckham. It's not ideal, but you can find wide receivers like we did on those Jet teams like Braylon Edwards and Santonio Holmes. So right now we're sitting here in April. I believe in this Buffalo Bill front office, and let's see how they execute their game plan.
Neat.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of using any of your draft capital to move up for a receiver or to trade to get Brandon Ayuk. Because the point that I made off of the top, while I went down that list of all of those Kansas City young players that played well, there's an equally long list of Kansas City draft picks that did not play well. So you need as many shots as you can, and don't assume that bringing in Brandon Ayuk, not that the 49ers would part with him, you'd probably be more likely to get them to come up off of Deebo Samuel than Brandon Ayuk at this stage. But I think that would be a mistake. Using your draft capital to move up a couple spots or to go get kind of a quick fix at receiver would be a mistake. Go ahead and draft as many players you can and hope you get some hits like the Chiefs did in the last couple seasons.
Quickly, Mike.
Greedy, this receiver they're going to draft is going to be about 11 years younger than Stefon Diggs. And when this receiver market gets reset by Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, amongst others, it's going to be a tremendous value. And that's why I think they were really smart to be proactive to get a second-round pick for a really good player in Stefon Diggs, but clearly closer to the end of his career than the beginning.
All right, we're back on Get Up, some football conversation. This, of course, is the big story here. Stefon Diggs traded to Houston. According to Shefty, as part of that blockbuster trade, the Texans wipe out the final 3 years of Diggs' contract, so he has the ability to become a free agent after this season. He also got a raise, so he'll earn $22.5 million guaranteed dollars next year. So that's how it worked out for him. How about what he leaves behind? Here's the Buffalo receiving corps as we speak. They added Curtis Samuel. They added Mac Hollins. They have Khalil Shakir. Those are the only guys that have caught a pass, or at least they caught one last season on this roster. But despite that, our Damian Woody yesterday said, don't rule them out.
I'm not going to sit here on this set and dismiss the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are still, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the AFC because they have Josh Allen. We saw the Buffalo Bills last year when they had those injuries on defense. Sean McDermott adapted, and that defense towards the end of the year were playing really good football. This team is not going anywhere.
Okay, so this brings us back to the conversation we were having yesterday. All right, Mike Tannenbaum, Domonique Foxworth, Graziano here as we do the football. The most important two words on the screen that you're looking at right now are Josh Allen. I mean, let's face it, Neek. We can have any other conversation we want, but they have basically become the Buffalo Allens. If he has to be brilliant, otherworldly, MVP candidate for them to have any chance. Now, any quarterback who plays that way, their team has a chance. But what I'm saying is we're now putting everything on him, and so I'm fast forwarding right now, Neek. You and me and Saturday and whoever, we're sitting in here on a Tuesday morning, and the Bills aren't playing well, and their game, right, Graziano, our Tuesday crew, and we're all sitting here, and the Bills aren't playing well, and the topic bar is going to say, what's wrong with Josh Allen? And I'm going to look you in the face, Neek, and I'm going to say what's wrong is they took all his good pieces away. That's what's going to happen. Neek.
Yeah, they just proved this to us last year, which is why I'm confused at the overreaction. What Woody was saying is correct. Last year, midway through the season, I said they were done. I think we all thought that they were done last year during the season. My microphone is right here. And we all thought they were done midway through the season, but they addressed it. They addressed it, and they got better. And I think that what we have to understand, and I think we make this mistake sometimes, is the difference between great players and good players in the NFL is minuscule. And I think that coaches, when you have a lot of good players, which I think they will end up having, coaches is then their responsibility to coach them up in the right position and to make them succeed. And last year when they had all that success, it wasn't because Josh Allen was blacking out. It was because they were playing above their heads on defense, and Josh Allen was being efficient on offense. So I don't think that we need to enter a world where we expect Josh Allen to throw for 350 and run for 100 every week. That would be a mistake, because you know what happens when we do that is he's going to turn the ball over. So just relax. Let Brandon Beane do the job that he's been doing, and let Sean McDermott continue to do the job that he's been doing. And by the time we get to September, they're going to be all right.
He's absolutely right about the Bills and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and their ability to problem solve. Absolutely 100% correct. There's no doubt about it. But I think Josh Allen has to be part of the problem solving at this point. I think that's just the natural evolution of this economic situation in the NFL, where you get to the point where you're paying the quarterback at a level that you have to make cuts elsewhere on the roster that are painful. I think one of the reasons they were able to do this, they were comfortable doing this, is they did adjust their offense as the season went on last year. They leaned more on the running game and James Cook. They felt like, not that we can do without Stefon Diggs, but maybe we don't have to lean as much on the passing game. But Josh Allen, as one of the leaders in that building, as the guy that's going to be there longer than anybody else probably, needs to be part of the solution as they transition into this next phase. Whatever form that takes, he has to be a part of it.
Here's the thing, though. For both of you guys, and Mike T, I'll go to you. I'm going to read some other names here. Leonard Floyd, Trey White, Jordan Poyer. This team has been decimated. It's not just trading away Stefon Diggs. Every name, thank you. I mean, look at these guys. This is like basically half the players that who have taken them as far as they've been going.
But they knew this was coming. I mean, maybe not Diggs, but a lot of these moves were foreseen, and we knew this going into the offseason. And these teams budget their salary cap out in 2 or 3 year increments. And so the Buffalo Bills front office knew this was happening, and they've been preparing for it.
Right, which means this is the year they take a step back. I mean, it just seems...
Maybe this is the year they crush the draft and they don't take a step back.
Tannenbaum.
Yeah, Greeny, one of your favorite lines is sneaky big news. Matt Milano is a star at linebacker. He played 5 games. Von Miller is a Hall of Fame pass rusher. He had 0 sacks last year. So they lost a lot of good players. I'm not minimizing it, but they're getting a couple back. And just for our audience, let's put something in context here. Brian Thomas Jr. is just a name, right? They're sitting at 28 right now. Brian Thomas is as big and faster than a player like T. Higgins. That's how good this draft is. So I'm not saying that it's Brian Thomas for sure, but boy, they have a reasonable chance to get somebody of his ability. They have a chance to be harder to defend. When you think about James Cook only had 44 catches, Dalton Kincaid had 73, and when you sprinkle in a young receiver like him, or maybe it's Lam McConkey, you have a chance to be better on offense. It's not just going to be Stefon Diggs and everybody else. And from an opposing defensive standpoint, you don't know where the ball is going. That's going to make them potentially even harder to defend than it was a year ago.
You also brought up quickly, for those just joining us, post-June 1, other moves they could potentially make.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, to me, is one we got to keep an eye on. A lot of noise about San Francisco. Is it Deebo Samuel? Is it Brandon Ayuk? Tre'Davious White's money, Greeny, comes off after June 1st. They'll have plenty of salary cap room to do a big extension. They have an extra second-round pick next year in 2025 from the Stefon Diggs trade. So maybe it's Brandon Ayuk. Maybe it's Michael Thomas, who's still out there. Maybe it's Odell Beckham on a 1-year deal. Receivers are going to want to play with Josh Allen. It's that aura of association because he's a star quarterback. So it's April 5th. We got a long way to go.
Neek.
Yeah, they got the hardest part figured out. They got a franchise quarterback who is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. The rest of this stuff, don't trip. They got good coaches that will figure it out. We saw it happen last year. I wouldn't be too aggressive in the trade market because they're going to need these draft picks. As we've seen with the Chiefs have demonstrated for the past 2 seasons, is when you're paying a quarterback a lot, you're going to have to give up some places, but in order to remain competitive, you're going to have to win in the draft. And we saw the Chiefs fill up their defense with young, talented players, had the best defense in football last year. As much credit as we want to give Patrick Mahomes, we have to appreciate how important it was for them to have young players on rookie deals playing above their heads. The Bills are going to have to do the same thing to remain competitive. But again, the hardest part is figured out. They got Josh Allen.
Final word.
We've seen it work. Mahomes made it work. Look, but Dak Prescott made it work with CeeDee Lamb when they traded Amari Cooper. He's part of the evolution of that player. We saw the opposite in Green Bay when they traded away Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers kind of sulked through a season. So it can go either way, but Josh Allen can be a big part of it.